I'm 81 years old, and I'm going to tell you something that most people are too polite, music too uncomfortable, or simply too scared to say out loud. Most people think that as we reach our 80s, our biggest fear is the end, the final curtain call. They think we spend our nights trembling at the thought of the cliff, but they are wrong. They don't understand the reality of these later chapters. Here is the hard truth. The hardest part of getting older isn't dying. It's disappearing while you are still breathing. If you are over 60, 70, or especially if you are in the 80-plus club like me, music, you know exactly what I mean. It's a quiet, heavy, and persistent ache. It's the realization that you have become a ghost in your own life. You walk through the world. You go to the grocery store. You attend church. But you feel like you've been erased. People look right through you. You've become a part of the background, like a faded painting or a piece of old furniture that everyone has seen so many times they've stopped noticing it's even there. Stay with me for a few minutes. Because if you've been feeling this shadow of invisibility, this weight of being alive but no longer seen, I need to tell you why it's happening. And I need to share the moment my perspective shifted. Because last Tuesday, I found a way to turn this disappearing act into the greatest freedom I've ever known. But first, we have to look this sadness in the eye. We have to name it because no one prepares you for the day you become a relic in your own home. We live in a culture, especially here in the West, that is obsessed with new, fast, and loud. It's a world built for the young, the productive, and the useful. And at 81, let's be honest, we are none of those things. We are the old, dusty books on the back shelf that everyone assumes they've already read, so they never bother to crack the spine and see what's inside. I remember the first time I felt it clearly. I was at a family gathering. There was laughter, the smell of good food, the chaos of grandchildren running around. I was sitting in my usual chair, the one with the worn armrests. I was right there. I was music, breathing. I had thoughts. I had jokes I wanted to tell. I had stories about their great-grandfather that only I remember. But as the conversation flowed around me, I realized I was being treated like a museum exhibit. They talked about me, but not to me. They made decisions for me as if I weren't in the room. Is Grandpa tired? Does Grandpa want tea? One day you realize you are still alive, but no longer visible. That sentence hit me like a bolt of lightning in that crowded room. I felt a surge of bitterness. I wanted to stand up and shout, I am still here. I still have a mind. I still have a fire in my belly. But I didn't. I just sat there clutching my tea, feeling the cold fog of invisibility settle over my shoulders. Maybe you felt it at the doctor's office when the nurse speaks to your daughter instead of looking you in the eye. Maybe you felt it at the hardware store when the young clerk ignores you to help someone 30 years younger. It's a death by 1,000 cuts. It's the world telling you that because your pace has slowed, your value has diminished. But why does it hurt so much? I've spent a lot of time thinking about this in the silence of my house. It hurts because for 60 or 70 years our identity was tied to our usefulness. We were the providers. We were the mothers who kept the house running. We were the experts in our fields. We were the fixers of problems. Our worth was measured by how much we could do. And now the body doesn't do as much. The career is a memory. The children are grown and have their own problems to fix. When you can no longer do, you are forced to just be. And for most of us, after a lifetime of constant motion, just music being feels like a failure. It feels like we've been benched while the game is still going on. I've seen so many of my peers fall into a dangerous trap. They feel this invisibility coming, and they fight it with a desperate, frantic energy. They try to stay busy with trivial tasks. They try to dress like they're 40. They try to keep up with every digital trend and every political argument, hoping that if they stay loud enough, the world won't forget they exist. I call this the mistake of the final chapter. It's when we spend our last pages trying to rewrite our first ones. We try to be the hero of the story again, the one who leads the charge and saves the day. But that's not what this chapter is for. I made this mistake for years. I sat in this very chair looking out that window, feeling like a discarded tool. I was angry at the world for moving so fast. I was angry at my phone for not ringing. I was mourning the man I used to be, the one who was relevant. Music. I was so busy looking backward at the man in the 1965 photographs that I didn't even notice the man sitting in the chair in 2026. Think about that for a second. If you are 80 years old and you are still trying to be 50, you are failing at being 80. And being 80 is a monumental task. It requires a specific kind of courage that a 50-year-old wouldn't understand. The sadness of invisibility grows when we crave the wrong kind of attention. We want the world to see us as useful because we haven't yet learned how to see ourselves as significant. There is a massive difference between the two. Usefulness is about what you produce. Significance is about who you are. No one prepares you for this transition. In our youth, we are taught how to build, how to grow, how to accumulate, but no one teaches us how to diminish gracefully. No one teaches us that there is a profound holy power in the act of stepping back. I promised I'd tell you about the moment everything changed for me. It happened last Tuesday around 4:00 p.m. That's usually the loneliest hour of my day. The sun starts to get low, the shadows stretch out, and the house feels particularly empty. I was feeling sorry for myself. I had called my grandson earlier that morning, and he had given me that rushed, polite tone that says, "I love you, but I have a real life to get back to." I felt like a ghost. I felt invisible. But then I did something different. Instead of turning on the television to drown out the silence, I just sat with it. I looked at my hands again, and I realized if no one is looking at me, then I am finally free to truly look at everything else. It was a revelation. For my entire life, I was worried about how I appeared to others. Was I successful enough? Was I a good enough father? Did I look like I knew what I was doing? I was always on stage. Even in my retirement, I was performing the role of the active senior. But being invisible, it's like being a spy in the house of life. Suddenly, the invisibility didn't feel like a curse. It felt like freedom. When the world stops expecting you to lead the parade, you are finally free to actually hear the music. You start to notice things that the useful people are way too busy to see. I noticed the way the dust motes dance in a beam of light in my living room. A tiny, chaotic ballet that has been happening for years, but I was always too busy to see it. I noticed the specific shade of gold the oak tree turns just before the sun goes down. I noticed the hidden tremor in a friend's voice that told me they were struggling. Something I would have missed back when I was the one doing all the talking. One day, you realize you are still alive, but no longer visible. When you accept that sentence, the saddest thing becomes the lightest thing. You unbuckle the 100B backpack of ego and ambition that you've been lugging around since the 1950s. You realize that you don't have to win an argument ever again. You don't have to prove your worth to a clerk at the store. You don't have to be important. You gain the superpower of clarity. You see the world as it truly is, not as you want to use it. You see the beauty, the tragedy, and the comedy of the human struggle with a perspective that only comes from being near the exit. So what do we do with this invisibility? Do we just sit in the dark and wait? No, we become the watchers. We become the steady, silent lights in a world that is flickering and frantic. If you are feeling invisible to your family, I want you to try a new strategy. Stop trying to give them advice they didn't ask for. Stop trying to remind them of who you used to be. Instead, just be the light in the room. When they are talking and stressing about their past lives, just look at them with the eyes of someone who knows how it all ends. Look at them with pure, unadulterated love. They might not notice it now. They might still talk over you. They might still treat you like a ghost. But I promise you, one day, maybe years after you are truly gone, they will be sitting in their own quiet house, and they will remember the feeling of being in the room with you. They won't remember your advice. They won't remember your career. They will remember the peace you carried. They will remember that you were the only person in their life who wasn't trying to get something from them, but was simply there. The hardest part isn't dying. It's disappearing while still breathing. But the most beautiful part is what you find once the spotlight is gone. You find that you were never the roles you played. You were never the provider or the boss or the fixer. Those were just costumes. Underneath the costumes, there is a soul that is ancient, wise, and deeply connected to everything. I don't know how many more of these sunsets I have left to watch from this porch. At 81, every cup of coffee feels like a miracle, and every conversation feels like a gift. But as long as I'm here, I'm going to keep speaking into this microphone because I know you're out there. Music. I know you're sitting in your chair feeling the same silence I feel. We are a disappearing breed, we 80-year-olds. We are the last of our kind. But we are not gone yet. And as long as we are still breathing, we have a job to do. Our job is to be the witnesses. Our job is to hold the wisdom that the world is too busy to listen to right now, but will desperately need later. If you felt that shadow of invisibility, if you've been mourning the person you used to be, I want you to come and sit on this porch with me. We need a place where we are seen, even if it's just through a digital screen. I'd be honored if you subscribed and joined this community. We are building a library of stories and truths that the world isn't ready for yet, but they will be. Before you go, I want to ask you to do something very specific. I want you to reclaim your visibility for just one moment. In the comments below, finish this sentence. I might be invisible to the world, but I still see. Tell me one beautiful, tiny, or profound thing you noticed today that all the busy people missed. It could be the way your cat slept in the sun, or the taste of a piece of fruit, or a memory that came back to you in the shower. I read every single comment. It reminds me that I am still visible to you, and I want you to know that you are definitely still visible to me. Take a breath now, a real one. Feel the air in your lungs. It's the same air you breathed in 1950. And it's just as sweet today. You are still here. You are still significant. And your story is just getting to the part that actually matters. I'll see you in the next chapter. God bless.